Well, thank you very much for being here. Very much appreciate it. It's really great to be here from Teradata Labs. As was mentioned, Teradata Labs, we look at not only building current product and hopefully serving the needs of you and your customers, but we're looking at ways we can extend the breadth and reach of our technology and provide even more options over the long term. And so what I'm hoping to cover with you today is to give you a little bit of insight into what we're thinking about, what we're seeing, and an update on some of the latest product releases that are out there. I'd like to start, though, with something that had a huge impact on me 40 years ago. On our first field trip from primary school, we went to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, and I actually came across this thing. And it really stuck with me how cool this thing really was. This is a Foucault pendulum. Anybody here know what a Foucault pendulum is? Couple, okay, cool. So I thought, wow, this is really neat. And as I was preparing my material for Partners this year and talking about, what we're seeing in the marketplace, things that are going on, market trends, one of the big things that we see as market trends is there's just lots and lots and lots of data out there, creating a whole lot of chaos, and finding insight from that data is what we're all about, and providing solutions that help you all find insight from that data is what we're all about. So what does that have to do with this pendulum? Well, it's a similar thing. You think about the inventors of this pendulum, right? It looks like just a normal pendulum, right? A ball on a long chain and swings back and forth. But a couple of really cool things happen when you put it together with the right proportions and you set it in motion. First off, there are a whole bunch of opposing forces that impact us every day as we're walking around the Earth, right? There's gravity that's pulling us down to the Earth, and then there's centripetal force that's trying to throw us off of the Earth as the Earth rotates and spins around. And if you actually take a look at this pendulum as it swings throughout the day, it'll actually make a complete circle. That's what those little markers on the floor are and what those little pins and pegs are. And if you take it one step further, you can actually use this device to tell exactly what time it is. It is precisely the most accurate analog clock in the world. It takes chaos, it takes opposing forces, it takes things that are seemingly unrelated, pulls them together, and creates really great insight. And that's really the theme that we have in Teradata Labs as we think about the products and the solutions that we're delivering. Data-driven business was the focus and the theme for our Teradata Partners Conference this year. And we truly believe that being able to harness that chaos, being able to pull together all of your data and create insights from that data is where it's at. And it's a very exciting time to be in this line of business. When you think about all of the new data sources, all of the new data types, all of the interactions that are now available that we can keep track of, it's this huge source of raw material that creates potentially limitless insights for how we run our business. And it's even more important than just big data and all of the data deluge and chaos that's out there. If I can get my clicker to work. There we go. Not just about the data, but it's an imperative for all of our businesses because our customers are getting more intelligent and more informed, and they actually have the control of information, so their expectations on how we behave and how we run our businesses are increasing every day. And so keeping up, there's this huge supply of data, there's all of this raw material out there, and the expectations of our customers are ever increasing. And so that's really why I think this is the greatest place to be in the technology industry today. Sorry, we have an electronics problem. So just go down 3 more. So the backdrop of what we're seeing happening in the marketplace, right, and you're seeing this every day, I'm sure, as well, is number one, there's this huge change in the economics behind data. All right? It's getting ever and ever less expensive to store data. That's a really good thing. And the volumes of data are increasing disproportionately to the value that's created from the data. Let me walk you through an example, right? In a traditional business intelligence kind of scenario, if you go into a store and you purchase a box of nails, a home improvement store, and you purchase a box of nails, you create 100 bytes of data from that transaction, right? The product code, the store, the date, the cashier, the price, perhaps some information on how you paid. You create about 100 bytes. And there's a lot of value behind that data because, of course, the merchant can use that to understand what you bought, what your behaviors were. Perhaps maybe since you bought a box of nails, maybe you need a hammer, right? Some other sales opportunities. They use it to understand the distribution network and the replenishment that needs to go on, and have another box of nails available on the shelf for the next customer, all from 100 bytes. Fast forward into, an electronic, internet-connected society. If you go buy that same box of nails from that same merchant by going to the website and doing a search and looking for that box of nails and ordering the box of nails and having it shipped to your house, you probably created 100 or 200 kilobytes of data for the same value, right? And if you take it one step further and you imagine that most websites only convert about less than 1% of the visitors on that website to an actual sales transaction, now you're at millions of kilobytes of data for the same value. And at the same time that that's happening, the data that's created in these kinds of interactions is different. It's not just simple rows and transactions anymore, but it's very complex pieces of information that indicate how you traverse through a website, as an example. Or even further out in the Internet of Things with sensor data, the way sensors and machines communicate with each other creates different structures of data. And that's really the second key trend, is all of these new tools emerging to go deal with, in an appropriate fashion, all of the new kinds of data that are out there. And that leads us to what we're really seeing is that we're entering the world of the logical data warehouse, the analytical ecosystem, meaning that there are multiple technologies that are supporting vastly divergent kinds of data with vastly different kinds of value. And it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, one technology kind of solution out there, but it's in fact going to be an ecosystem. And we're certainly seeing that crop up with all of the different vendors out there and all of the new technologies. So we take a step back and we say, okay, what's the most effective way for us to build technology and to help you survive in this new world order where there's all of this data coming in, multiple different kinds of technologies, an ecosystem, and higher expectations of your customers? And so we thought about it in a simple analogy, and we talked about this at the Partners Conference. If you think about an archer, right? How does a world-class archer become successful, right? Through three simple steps, very simple and easy to remember. First, prepare, get ready, right? Understand what equipment you have, make sure that the equipment is in top working order. Understand the target, understand the objective. Prepare yourself for the competition. The second piece is to aim. Can we go down? Sorry. To aim. To understand, all right, now here's where the target is. I've got to aim. I've got to understand all of the data about the process. What's the wind velocity? What's the distance? What is the effectiveness of the tools that I've got, the arrows and the bow? And I've got to prepare all of those things to make a judgment call. But most importantly, I prepare all of these things so that I can fire. And this is where the rubber meets the road. So there are a lot of vendors out talking about new technology and big data and all kinds of interesting technology and analytics that can be done. But in the end, it's only as important as how you're able to fire, how you're able to take action in your business to make a difference for customers, to make a difference for suppliers, and to make a difference competitively in your marketplace. All these new technologies out there every day, it can get very confusing. So as we look at this landscape, we try to focus on the three key areas that I described for you earlier: ready, aim, and fire. How do we make sense of this? How do we turn this into actionable business value? So in the ready, the key here that we see is to enable the creation of an integrated data fabric. And so for those of us who've been around data warehousing for a very long time, there's some common themes in here, but there's some new nuance that's enabled by the new data and the new technologies available. Creating a data fabric means focus on the data that you've got, where it is, keep it in its native format, keep all of the detailed data so that you can actually provide an analytic framework across all of the data. And this is what we're enabling with Teradata's unified data architecture. It's a reference architecture that helps reconcile the different kinds of data, the different platforms, and the different data mass storage platforms that need to be integrated to create an end-to-end data fabric. And we believe that in this world of an ecosystem-led technology, the fabric is extremely valuable and important, and it kind of like when you weave threads into a fabric, right? The fabric itself is stronger than the individual threads, right? And you can change the mix of the threads to change how the fabric actually behaves, the durability, the wrinkle-free nature, the softness. And so having a data fabric is very similar. You need to be very flexible with your technology deployments and build it on an extensible technology platform. Once you've got your data fabric, the foundation of your data, the raw material for analytics, the raw material for creating insights out of chaos, you've got to figure out how to aim. And in this space, orchestration is key. And here in Teradata Labs, we've been working on this notion of orchestration for a very long time, and we think that this is an extremely powerful concept. Remember, I talked about the notion of buying that box of nails and buying it on a website versus buying it in the store, and kind of the difference in the data, the difference in the way you extract insight from the data, right? If you just have a simple transaction, it's very easy, kind of spreadsheet-like. You can aggregate that data. It's very formatted, very structured, and you understand it. When you buy that box of nails on the website, right, you create this weblog, which is a blob of data that is very meaningless unless you can apply the proper tools to that blob of data to extract from it what you actually did in the session and what the result of that session was. And that requires different analytic processing, different kinds of technology to get to the answer from that raw material of data. But what's really interesting is being able to combine these kinds of analytics together in a single workflow, and that's what we call orchestration. And we believe that this will be the key differentiation between moderate success in data and analytics and stellar success in data and analytics. Being able to understand all of the data. It's much more than the federation play of old, right? Federation was kind of, gee, I've got data in different places, let me pull it together into a single place and kind of run through it and give an answer. With orchestration, we're creating a much more powerful concept, meaning that we can actually allow you to choose the file system that you store the data in based on the appropriateness, the cost, the service level, the actual platform where the data are physically stored, and the analytic engine that you run or engines that you run against the data, and do that through software, and do that in a very flexible framework where you can also mix and match and create a single workflow with multiple analytic engines. And more importantly, as your data change, as your business changes, and as technologies change, you can change your mind without being locked into a specific point solution out there. So orchestration is really a key theme for us in the labs, and the first instantiation of technology we're creating around orchestration is what we started talking about in the summer, last summer in the US, called QueryGrid. And QueryGrid is our differentiated technology to provide an orchestration layer for you, and it's available and shipping today. Okay? It lets you pick the engine, the workflow, the file system, and combine those things through software in using massively parallel technology so that we don't include any bottlenecks, and we create really great performance and flexibility in how you deploy analytics across your expanded data fabric. QueryGrid was initially launched to support Teradata to Teradata, Teradata to Hadoop, and Teradata to Aster. We've extended that now to include Teradata to MongoDB and Teradata to Oracle. So as you can see, we're supporting an expanded data fabric using different kinds of technologies, and we're enabling the orchestration of those technologies through Teradata software called QueryGrid. And as a further enhancement, We also obviously create appliances for each of these solutions, and where you've deployed those appliances, you have the capability of having a single physical private network that is very low latency and high bandwidth for extreme performance. So you've got choices in software, you've got choices in hardware and deployment, but most importantly, we allow you to mix and match the analytic content and really provide analytics across all of your data. In the Hadoop space, we announced at Partners 2 weeks ago that in addition to our existing strategic relationship with Hortonworks, we are also supporting distributions from Cloudera. So in the Hadoop space, which is a key part of your data fabric, our goal is to provide choice from the major distributions and not actually own a distribution ourselves, but make sure that the open source community helps to continue to drive innovation. And as you make a decision on which distribution you're implementing inside of your shop and building out your data fabric, we'll support it with our data fabric. We'll support it additionally with our orchestration software and Query Grid. One of the key parts of building out this data fabric and the orchestration layer is also helping keep track of where all the data is. And if you think about, I've been, as our MC mentioned, I've been around Teradata for quite some time, and before that I was a customer of Teradata. So I lived through the whole data mart era and early analytics. And one of the big issues that we had with data marts and kind of the early days of analytics was data marts would pop up, and it would be very hard sometimes to reconcile what was in one data mart versus what was in another data mart. If you think forward into the data fabric era, it's a much more complicated problem because now it's not just structured transactional data that was put together by people who seemingly work with each other. It could actually be data that comes from third parties using different technology bases, and so it's very easy to get confused as where everything is. So we also invested in a company called Revolytics, which we announced about 2 months ago. And we made our first release of Revolytics software, which is called Loom. Keeping with that whole data fabric notion, Loom, right? You weave a fabric on Loom. What Teradata Loom allows you to do is create data lineage and tracking of data as it moves through your data fabric. And so it's data lineage and data wrangling for Hadoop that allows you to deploy across your Hadoop infrastructure and keep track of all of the analysts and what they're putting there, how it got there, what the traceability is, and how the data were transformed over time, right? So in addition to having an extended and flexible data fabric and an orchestration layer, we're also providing tools to help you just keep track of what's out there and what you've got available for your business users. So we talked about the data fabric, orchestration, Loom, keeping track of what's out there. All of this kind of culminates in what we released and talked about as a really cool analytic capability called connection analytics. And we're all building all of this for a point. And the point really is that the combination of all of these things is actually worth more than the individual components, right? It's really interesting to understand what's happening in your inventory position in your stores as an application. It's really interesting to understand the sentiment of your best customers as an application. But when you start to combine those things together, you can get a much better view of what's happening in your business and a much better understanding of how you should be treating your best customers and how you should be replenishing your supply chain and other things. Connection analytics is a technology foundation and suite that enables these workflows across multiple disparate kinds of technologies where you can combine the best of graph analytics, the best social network analytics, as well as traditional analytics, so that you can really get that high definition view of what's happening in your business. And it's not just a collection of technologies that we're excited about in the connection analytics story, but it's actually the workbench that we've created so that mere mortals, regular business analysts who are used to manipulating data with their visualization tools can actually have access to this extended capability in a way that's very consumable, and therefore they can iterate through the data very quickly and find the insight from the chaos that's out there in all of this data. So connection analytics, very excited about that release. We're not done with this, right? The data fabric, the orchestration, keeping track of things, connection analytics is all leading up to you being able to change the way you do business. And as you're doing that, and as user expectations and your customers become as your customers are setting their expectations higher, we need to continue to move the ball forward in terms of overall performance and capability. So as it relates to Fire, we've also launched some extensions to the Teradata in-memory technology to enable the highest performance execution of the analytics that you create. So we've got the tools that enable you to weave the data fabric together, keep track of it, create analytics from that data fabric, but most importantly, where the rubber meets the road, Fire, we can actually create the most highly performant, high concurrency capabilities so that as your businesses scale and as analytics really become part of the fundamental business process, you can be secure in knowing that you'll be able to fire and execute those business programs. So look for in early 2015 some of our newer in-memory technologies that will give you even more options on how you go and deploy and fire in this expanded analytics environment. Thank you very much for joining us here at Teradata Summit. I hope this preview was helpful in giving you some insight into what we're thinking about in Teradata Labs. You know, it's a really exciting time to be working in the labs because not only do we have the best foundational data warehouse technology, we have some very unique parallelization and scalability built into that technology. But as we take that know-how and expand it into the broader data fabric, we're really excited about the kinds of solutions and technologies that we can provide for you. And in the end, it's about really great technology, but more importantly, it's about creating flexibility for you to decide how to build out your data fabric. And if you build out your data fabric properly, then that slide that has all the 4,000 different kinds of new applications that are out there, that's much more manageable because you've now got the data and you can pick and choose the applications that your businesses and that your customers want. So thank you again for your support of Teradata.